Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Indago ResearchCast, where we share data insights from our Indago research community and discuss them with subject matter experts in the industry. So it's my great pleasure to welcome today's guest, Ron Lazo, who's Vice President of Professional Services at Manhattan Associates. Today we're going to discuss the findings from 3 Indago surveys that we conducted this year that were related to COVID-19, the lessons learned, and the key capabilities that companies must have to succeed, moving forward. So it's great to have, Ron on the program to kind of get his take on the research results and kind of hear from him in terms of what he's been hearing from his clients and the companies he works with. So Ron, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Adrian. Great to be with you today.
So Ron, it's great to be together. Normally we get to see each other maybe twice a year, certainly at the Momentum Conference, which is a great way to kind of hear from customers directly and from the subject matter experts as yourself. But I'm glad we've had the opportunity here to, talk through kind of the big topic of the year, which is, the transformation that the industry has taken really, as a result of the COVID-19, pandemic and some of the lessons learned. So I'm just going to go right into kind of the first, sets of survey data, and then I'm going to come back to you to kind of get your, thoughts on it. So if you look at, one of the first surveys that we did that was related to COVID-19 was back in March. So this was, just as things were getting, bad, if you could say, how things were starting to peak in that first surge here, at least in the United States. So we asked our Endago research community, and for those of you not familiar with what Endago is, it's a community of supply chain logistics practitioners from manufacturing, retail, and distribution companies. We have over 75 members in that community right now. And what we do is it's a validated and curated community, meaning that we validate that everyone who is in that community is indeed who they say they are. And what we do is we send them a survey every Monday. Every Thursday, we close it up. And then on Friday, we send out the results to everybody. And then we do it all over again on Monday. So it's a kind of a great way to keep a pulse on what's top of mind for supply chain logistics executives out there from a variety of different industries that are part of our research community. So anyway, back in March, we asked the question in response to this coronavirus pandemic, what types of changes do you believe your company will make in how it designs and operates its supply chain? And 41% of the respondents said that they expect to make many to extreme changes in response to what they were experiencing as a result from the pandemic, and another 22% said they expected to make at least moderate changes. And I think it's noteworthy to show that only 7% said that they didn't expect to make any changes. So I think for this, for a lot of companies, it was kind of a wake-up call that we've been talking about, digital transformation. We've been talking about the importance of moving away from spreadsheets and manual processes for a long time. And those companies that were not prepared, realized that, the time to be on the sidelines was no more, that they really needed to take some action here. So I think that was kind of the first thing that we learned from our community back in March. And then we asked another question back in August. So a few months later, we asked, which supply chain capabilities will become more important for success, moving forward. And I guess that the results are not that surprising if you look at it. Visibility really, topped the list there. Number 1 and number 2 by a wide margin were the ability to capture and analyze real-time demand, and then the real-time visibility of inventory across the supply chain down to the SKU level. So obviously, we read the stories in the newspapers about, all the out of stocks, with toilet paper and hand sanitizer and the like, and the rise in e-commerce and trying to meet that, surge in demand. So really, it kind of it became very clear that, moving forward, having that visibility to both supply and demand, and then being able to do what-if analysis to kind of be better prepared or be more proactive, moving forward was going to be, critical. And then, just to kind of highlight, a couple of quotes here from our Indago members related to that survey. One of them said, the ability to visualize real-time demand based on instantaneous updating of consumption at the point of sale has a tremendous opportunity to improve inventory stocking levels and extends into production planning. And then another one said, with demand and supply being so unpredictable right now, the ability to model what-if scenarios without making changes to live demand planning and supply planning systems is crucial. often we have made multiple changes within a week's time, and our leadership literally asks, what if XYZ happens? How will that affect our ability to serve customers? So again, all of this underscores the importance of visibility and being more proactive as opposed to reactive. So that brings me to my first question for you, Ron. I mean, obviously, visibility, top of mind, one of the key things that our members said that was going to be important moving forward. Does that surprise you? What's your perspective from what you're hearing from clients?
Yeah, thanks, Adrian. I absolutely agree that visibility, and especially real-time visibility, I would say, to both supply and demand is a critical capability, a critical component that's been leveraged by our clients, what we're seeing throughout the year, especially in light of COVID. And really, if you think about it, the extreme and unprecedented variability that's been with supply and demand through that they've experienced throughout the year. And as I thought through this question, I thought about our customer deployments this year, and especially within transportation. I'll use that as an example. Essentially, every project that we executed this year had either an enabling or an enhancing visibility component or a must-have capability tagged for the supply chain organization. So we really did not deliver a transportation solution to any of our clients this year that didn't include visibility in the most simplest fashion. And what's interesting is, and to some of your earlier points around which components of visibility were important and to what level, in our experience, it went well beyond where's my truck. In the old days, it used to be, if I knew where a truck was in motion, I'm good, and I'll ping it every 30 minutes or an hour, and if I feel like it's moving as planned, I'm in good shape. But really, what I'm describing at this level of visibility that we've experienced is really spanning all nodes, all channels, and all trading partners. And so whether it's inbound to a distribution center, whether it's distribution center to a store, vendor direct to a store, or maybe it's even direct to the consumer, our customers were closely tracking visibility of product, whether it was deemed critical, essential due to COVID, or whether it was just part of an e-commerce order that they had placed. They're now tracking with much more granularity, and I mean at the SKU, at the item, and the carton level, which is well beyond just where's my truck. It used to be, again, as I said earlier, that was what was most important. So, one example that comes to mind is a customer that is providing carton level visibility to what's on the truck, and they're providing that to their stores. And it's important because they are trying to provide their stores with the ability to plan their labor for the receiving operations at the store level better. So instead of the truck showing up unplanned, or they don't have the labor in place, or the labor on the store is helping customers, they now have the ability to see exactly how many cartons and how do I plan the appropriate amount or supply of labor to unload the truck in the most efficient manner. And then I think about another example of visibility to a customer that is providing SKU level visibility to their stores for what's on the truck. So if you think about it, in today's e-com world, if a customer places, say, an order for a pair of blue pants, size 32 waist, it's important for the store to know when the product has arrived. Did it arrive as planned? Can I really honor that in-store pickup appointment, that their online customer made? Or if there's an exception en route, how do I manage that? How do I deal with it? So this is really helping our customers, this real-time visibility, to take action against this intelligence and exposure to this data, so that at the end of the day, they don't disappoint their customers. And I think beyond just what we're experiencing from inbound to the stores, we're also seeing it just help our customers manage their DC operations, their receiving operations as well. So their inbound appointment management is much more efficient, and and they have more confidence in the trucks that are arriving as planned. if they want to allocate that inventory in transit, they can do that because they now have the right level of visibility that they need. Maybe they don't want to put away the product. Maybe they want to. Maybe it's a high demand product, and they need to do a flow through type execution move. They have confidence now because of the real time visibility that they can execute against that, and obviously plan their labor accordingly in the DC. So I think at the end of the day, Adrian, our customers are really trying the best to create a great experience for their customers, and really a bit of an unprecedented operating environment. And I think by leveraging this real-time data and shipment visibility, it lends toward obviously more exposure to intelligence and actionable recommendations. And I think with all these examples, it's really proven beneficial to them.
Yeah, no, those are some great examples there. I mean, you said a few things that caught my attention. One is the fact that you didn't implement the TMS this year or sold the TMS this year without visibility being a key component to that. So those things are really becoming tightly linked. But I think even more importantly is that visibility is not just a visibility to where's my truck. As the Indago members said, it's really visibility down to the SKU level, really across the supply chain. So it's not only what's in my warehouse, what's in my stores, but obviously what's inside the truck, but to a level of detail that they can actually plan and optimize, around. And I think that's where, I know, I've written several, posts about this in terms of, visibility. Part of it is, shedding light on what historically has been a black hole, but ultimately you have to do something with that visibility, right? And drive some action. And that's where, transportation management systems come in on the transportation side. That's where labor management systems comes in. That's where warehouse management systems come in, right? So it's that visibility that then, powers, these workflows that are found, across these, different enterprise applications. And at the end of the day, it's really marrying that demand side with the supply side in a much more intelligent, real time, and efficient manner, than ever before. So, I think the examples you gave kind of validate, why those things, rose to the top for our Endago members. So let's shift gears now and kind of talk a little bit about another survey, that we did. And this is going a little bit back now. So that previous survey was in August. This one we did in June, but I think it relates, nonetheless to the topic. And it was triggered by a post that I had written a few years ago. And it was about what are the things that we need to unlearn in supply chain management? And it was kind of a way of saying, hey, you know what, we've got to move away from the way we've always done things. And what are some of those things that we need to change to truly drive transformation in the industry? And, what came up on top of the top two things that came up. So the question was, what traditional supply chain practices or concepts, quote unquote, the way we've always done things, do you believe companies must unlearn to succeed moving forward? And number one was, we have to unlearn the I win, you lose approach to supplier relationships. And number two was viewing logistics solely as a cost center. And that's certainly, I've been in this industry now for 20 plus years, and I still come across companies that really still view, supplier relationship management from that perspective, and still view logistics as a cost center. So again, I think for our Endago members, particularly with the supplier relationship one, now that, again, in light of the pandemic, in terms of creating more strategic, relationship with suppliers, I think is something that a lot of companies are realizing that's going to be more important. It's always been important, but it's going to be more important moving forward. So just to share another, couple of comments from our members related to that survey, one of them said, in the coming years, supply chains will be the focus of many companies. So viewing the operation as more than a cost center, but as a driver of the business will be important, as well as viewing partnerships as strategic and worth investing in. And another one said, better companies no longer view logistics solely as a cost center. The truth is, logistics performance can have a big impact on sales, for example, by delivering consistently on time and in full, or providing frequent service to the best customers. So Ron, I guess the question then is, in light of, these results, what are your thoughts? I mean, do you agree that these are some of the things we need to unlearn? And what are you hearing from your customers in terms of how they're thinking about moving away from the way we've always done things?
Yeah, those are great questions. Adrian, our experience has been probably more about our clients being more oriented toward maybe not unlearning, but learning new SOPs, new business practices, or implementing new inventory or transportation policies. And I only call that out because I don't think what they were doing pre-COVID was wrong. It was appropriate for the time. So they didn't want to unlearn because some of those capabilities or policies were still relevant, still mattered. But I think with the advent of with COVID, we saw more accelerated actions taking place. So maybe there were some contemplation of enabling e-com capabilities, and it was more of a measured approach. But like you said, in March, it was time to act, and so they had to accelerate. So it was less about unlearning and for them, and it was more about learning, what do I need to do quickly, and what do I need to design and implement. Some of our customers, as an example, and I've got several things on the slide that that we helped our customers with, but some of them were seeing 200% volume increases, in their stores, and they needed to quickly enable e-commerce capabilities, whether it's buy online, pick up in store, whether it was ship from store, maybe it was curbside pickup. And while all of that sounds all doable and manageable, they're all very detailed transactions that take place. Most of us as a consumer just click buy. It's in our cart, we're done, we pay for it. But there's a lot of fulfillment activities that happen, once the click is made. So when we were working with our customers, we didn't have that time. We had to look at everything as a speed to solve in days and weeks, not months. And so with that increased volume, we had to act quickly. And some of our clients were really challenged with how to balance that, as we talked about, the supply and demand, especially toward high demand products like food, pharma, hygienic, and medical at that time. And how do they manage this across the various channels, in the most efficient and effective manner? So some of the things that they did quickly is they looked at some of the current policies and practices that were in place, and what do we do differently? So one of them is, in terms of how they view their SKU, and I'll call it SKU substitution logic. And simply put, they were looking at my SKU substitution logic as well as my SKU assortment, and is it appropriate for the current operating environment that I'm in? So, and how do I deal with products that are currently in short supply? And what do I do if I have more of others, than where the demand's at? And how do I balance all of those various conditions? So I'll give you a simple example with one customer. They were offering premium or economy choices to their customers. So whether it's milk, paper towels, as you mentioned earlier, toilet paper, given its popularity, its sudden popularity, we were able to quickly work with them and really say, let's enable the OMS to offer up 2 product categories, and the customer will really get whatever premium or whatever economy brand was available, which would help reduce SKU shortages of a particular brand. So for example, Adrian, if you had a preference toward Bounty, but we only had Brawny paper towels available, our SKU substitution logic would kick in, and we would direct the associate to pick which premium brand was available to avoid disappointing you. And that was not a normal, I'm not necessarily saying it was something they had to unlearn, but it was something they had to learn to say, it's okay to do that in this current operating environment. And in another case, the substitution logic also helped them in terms of protecting margin to say, I'm not going to ship premium milk when the customer ordered economy milk. So why give them organic, at $7, $8, a half gallon or a gallon? So can I make something in a more like-for-like substitution that's really a win-win for me and my customer and serves them? And then if we think about, the online SKU assortment, that was another where our customers started reducing variety and really shifted their focus to these high demand or essential items. So in essence, they did, as I mentioned earlier, they did unlearn some legacy practices, but they really put speed of fulfillment ahead of product variety. So if my kids wanted Oreos, for example, they could get an Oreo, but they may only get a traditional Oreo. They may not get the thin Oreo or the peanut butter filled, but they got Oreos and they were happy at the end of the day. And that just, again, that helped with the concept and the philosophy of dealing with the speed to fulfillment. And then I think the other thing that I noticed and I talked about is not only the interaction between the consumer and the store, but also the operational and business practice changes that our customers were making. I mentioned about it was, all about speed to solve, speed to fulfillment. Many of our customers evaluated the opportunities to bypass DCs and go direct to stores, they were always very focused on operating through a DC model, a DC network. But if there was an opportunity for them to take full truckloads from their vendors straight to the stores and to help replenish the in stock, why not? Did it make sense when feasible? Also, we started seeing them leverage cross docks much more efficiently. So instead of this traditional, network of going to this particular DC, there were a lot that were spinning up cross docks or leveraging 3PLs to handle those capabilities very quickly. And it was all in the spirit of consolidating products quickly to help speed the flow, the product flow and the deliveries to the stores.
I think those are all, great examples here. As you were talking through this, going back to a comment you made, there's so much that happens once a person, hits the click button, or even before the click button, because you were talking about, presenting to the customer different, SKU assortments or SKU substitution. And one of the things I wrote about earlier this year was, can you imagine if this pandemic had happened in 1999 or 1989 or 1979? Yes, it's been very disruptive, but when you look at the level of sophistication that we have today in the technology that, companies can bring to bear to, quickly and intelligently respond and do some of the things that you talked about. I mean, these are things that, obviously have evolved and matured and gotten more sophisticated over time, but these things didn't really exist to this level, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, certainly. So in many ways, the fact that companies, those that have been, already moving on the digital transformation curve, those that have been flexible and agile and responsive and have access to this technology, have been the ones that have been able to navigate, through this, more successfully than those that are still kind of operating as if it was 1999 or 1989. So what about the thought about, logistics as a cost center? Do you see that perspective changing as well?
Yeah, that's as you were making your comments, I was thinking about back in the 80s when I got into the industry on the practitioner side before I jumped to technology. I was in the 3PL and carrier industry, and it was a very transactional relationship with our shippers. But that was the 80s, and today I think to your point, the technology and the logistic partners have to be in place in order for all of us to be, well served and for it to be mutually beneficial. I've seen the value of logistics in the perspective of what I've put on this comment as an essential service changed quite a bit. From the 80s with that mindset. And certainly during COVID, logistics is an essential capability. It's an essential competency that every organization has to have. And I really think about it, Adrian, in the context of, I'm going a little bit back to my business days, the 4 Ps of marketing. Logistics is really driving, the right product, the right place, maybe today's world, the right channel, at the right price and at the right time. And that's never been more important, I think, than today, especially in light of COVID. So I think certainly the value of logistics is important. And I really see that playing out with the shipper and carrier interaction, especially during the transportation procurement bids and events that they're running. Historically, when I talked about, my early experience in the industry, it was a zero-sum game. I need a truck, I wanted the lowest rate, and even if you lose money, that's okay. Now I'm seeing these, the relationships evolve to a win-win where the collaboration, the transparency, the sharing of data is being mutually leveraged for both organizations. And what's interesting, I was speaking with one of our shipper customer executives about the outcome of the recent bid, and he shared that when they went into the bid, their mindset was really about lowest cost. We're in a very challenging time, so cost is essential. But as they thought through, and we met with them, and they thought through really the right bid strategy, it really shifted to a strategy that encompassed both a balance between cost and service. And if you look at the results, and I'm showing a sample of some recent bid results, we're certainly seeing some customers still drive savings, but not necessarily at the cost of, at the expense of service. There's still a balance. And what I found interesting is as I was speaking with our customer, he did not want to leverage or compromise the level of service and capacity commitments he got from his carriers. If the carriers felt like they were, it wasn't a fair deal, he knew at the end they were going to chase the spot market. And, if they were going to abandon those commitments, it wasn't going to be beneficial to his organization. And probably the most compelling thing that he told me was that he really felt like the competitive landscape for his company versus others was really being fought in supply chain versus supply chain, and how efficient they were in terms of providing the highest service levels that they could to their customers. And we don't often think of that. We often think about, the do I have the right e-com strategy? Do I have the best website? And this particular company was saying, well, none of that's going to matter if I can't get the product to the customer at the right place, right time, right price. So that was really fundamental to them evolving kind of their service and cost balance philosophy. And I thought that was pretty impressive that he was looking at the competitive landscape a little differently than maybe some others. So again, I just have one slide here that talks about recent bid results. Again, we're still seeing very good results, but this is really a accumulation or a result of the shippers and carriers working together to gain network efficiencies so they both can benefit. It's a very dynamic world. I mean, our shippers are finding alternate suppliers. Certain products are in high demand. The current suppliers, the lanes are changing. The routing guide may not have been set up for that. They need a more predictable spend. They don't want to go to the spot market. So approaching their carriers with the right transparency, I think, is really paying benefits, and also driving ultimately the economic picture and outcome that they want.
Yeah, no, I think you going back to the Indago results, I mean, in terms of unlearning, the I win, you lose approach, it certainly applies here, to transportation. As you said, historically, a lot of companies went in to say, okay, it's about getting the lowest cost possible as part of these, engagements. But I think over time, companies have recognized that, it's one thing, particularly in this environment, because it's so dynamic, capacity is getting, tighter. That if as part of your engagement, bid procurement engagement, if you end up with a contracted rate that's really out of whack from what the reality is out there, you're just going to exhaust your routing guide and end up in the spot market anyway, like you said, right? So it's really about, understanding the fact that, service is critical, as critical as ever, if not more in this environment. And how do you really take a different perspective going into the, the procurement engagement? So when we talk about, supplier relationship management, that, we have to look at it, that applies to transportation as well. And really looking at transportation providers not as strategic partners, moving forward, because, like you said, it's always a cyclical environment, but, all these other factors, the incredible growth of e-commerce, the changing customer requirements and so forth, is making it more imperative to really take that different perspective.
Exactly.
All right, Ron, so this has been great. You provide some great insights and perspective relative to the Endago results and provide some great examples from the customers that you work with. So as a way to wrap up, I mean, in light of everything we talked about, in light of what you've been hearing from customers and so forth, I mean, what do you view as the biggest lessons learned from 2020 that companies should embrace and apply in 2021 and beyond?
Yeah, I think, similar to the comments I made earlier, Adrian, I think e-commerce will continue to shape retail. We've all seen that play out. So the importance of the right platform with enabling technology, whether that's across store, mobile, your website, cloud technology, whatever a particular customer's preference is. And then the supporting operations being the ability to serve home delivery, final mile, more efficient fulfillment capabilities, curbside pickup. I think they all need to work in unison and they all remain critical. I think second, as we just talked about, trucking capacity will still remain priority. And what I mean by that is, we're still going to see constraints with trucking capacity. We're still, I think, going into 2020 at least, or 2021, at least with 2020, we're still seeing a high demand freight environment. I think there's still dislocation between volumes and capacity. So the freight market's still going to remain volatile. So the importance of those partnerships, those supplier, carrier, shipper relationships will remain important so that, spot rates are going to remain high. So instead of having of chasing spot rates, having a reliable routing guide that you can execute against. And I think will, motivate the carriers to live up to their contractual obligations and their capacity commitments. And then I hate to, at the end of the day, and I know this sounds really overly simplistic, I think customer service wins. And I think, the right customer experience through a great e-com platform, being able to serve the customers with really good fulfillment efficiency as well as the right carrier capacity. I think at the end of the day, if you choose the right technology and logistics partners, you're going to ensure a great customer experience. And I think 2020 has taught us that, that's important and it will remain important in 21.
Well, great words of advice. I completely agree. I think the link between supply chain logistics and customer experience is tighter than ever. And that is going to be one of the key levers of differentiation and competition, moving forward. So again, Ron, thank you for making the time to be with us today and sharing your insights and perspective on the Endago research results.
Great. Thanks, Adrian.
Great. I want to thank those of you that are watching this. If you want to learn more, if you're a practitioner from a manufacturing, retail, and distribution company, you want to learn more about the Endago research community, I invite you to visit joinindago.com where you can learn more and apply. Again, thank you all for joining and look forward to seeing you in a future Indago ResearchCast.